It was the autumn of 1918, and it had become clear that Germany could not win the war. So, the government resigned, and the new government began exchanging peace notes with the Allies. But the German High Command simply could not accept that Germany had been defeated. So, they began planning one last all-out attack on the Royal Navy. But the sailors knew that this attack would not have any impact on the outcome of the war. So, they began to mutiny. The mutiny failed, and hundreds of sailors were arrested for mutinying. But this act of disloyalty convinced German High Command that they would not be able to win the battle. And, at the end of October, they decided to call off the offensive. But they had imprisoned hundreds of sailors for mutiny, and now the people wanted those sailors back. Protests began. Their demands were anything from wanting the imprisoned sailors to be released to full-on socialist revolution. More and more sailors joined these protests, and troops were dispatched to put down the dissent. But the troops joined the side of the rebels. And with that, the death warrant of the German Empire had been signed. Do you know why? Because by morning, every ship in the fleet outside of Kiel would have a red flag flying over it. Poland, Ostrow, Alsace Lorraine, Saxony and Bavaria would all declare independence. The German Empire and its administration was overthrown all over Germany. When the revolution reached Berlin, the Chancellor announced to the people that the Kaiser had resigned, even though he actually hadn't. But it was too late. The Kaiser fled to the Netherlands, and a new republic was proclaimed. The Allies signed an armistice with the new government and poured into the Rhineland, occupying a large chunk of the country and retaking Alsace-Lorraine. The German fleet was ordered to go to Scapa Flow to surrender to the Allies, and the Republic of Ostrow was dissolved. But on the 27th of December, a German soldier fired a shot into a crowd of Polish protesters. This was a big mistake, because with that one shot, he had just destroyed any and all hopes of Germany maintaining control of their Polish lands, because that was the spark that lit the fire that caused a rebellion to launch in German-Polish areas. Communist revolutions began in Bremen and Berlin, and the Bottleneck Republic was formed. The Bottleneck Republic was literally named that because it looked like the bottleneck between the American and French occupation zones. But here's the thing. The war in the West had been won. The war in the East was far from over. Germany, you have to go east and retake the Baltic states. Now. What? Why? Well, we can't let Soviet Russia retake the Baltic states now, can we? Come on, Germany. I'll save Estonia, you save Latvia and Lithuania. If the Russians won, they would have a clear shot straight to Berlin. But if Allied regimes could be set up in the region, then they would be able to cut off the Gulf of Finland and take control of Petrograd. The stakes were high, and everybody was ready to eat them. I didn't know where I was going with that one. I was sort of on a roll, and So the war continued. As the Red Army poured into the Baltic states, German and Polish forces went to stop them. The Royal Navy sent support to the Estonians, and on the 3rd of January, they halted the Soviet advance. Germany took the city of Riga in May, which is the capital of Latvia. Estonia wasn't comfortable with having the German forces that close to its border. So, a combined Latvian-Estonian force halted the German advance and retook the city. In March, a second communist revolution began in Berlin. This one, like the first one, failed. In Bavaria, the Wurzburg Soviet Republic declared independence for 2 days before it got retaken by Bavaria. In the south, a communist government declared sovereignty, and the Civil War began. 8,000 troops of the Bavarian state met the Red Army in battle, but they were outnumbered more than 3 to 1. So every single Bavarian soldier either deserted or defected at the first shot of battle. And I heard the married soldiers did that as well. After this disastrous defeat, the Bavarian government had no choice but to call for help from the Freikorps. Now the Freikorps were this group of former German soldiers who'd been kicked out of the army after losing the First World War, had forced Germany to downsize its army. Now, the Freikorps were going down crushing communist revolutions all over Germany. They'd already put down 2 in Berlin and 1 in Bremen. Now, they'd been called in to support Bavaria. 20,000 Freikorps troops soon had Munich surrounded, and on the 2nd of May, they finally completed taking the city. On the 11th of May, the Freikorps retook Saxony. In August, Bavaria rejoined Germany. But the violence wasn't over yet. German attempts to retake Riga and parts of Lithuania had failed, so the armies of the newly independent countries had pushed them out of the Baltic states. Meanwhile in Silesia, 10 civilian protesters were shot by German soldiers. And I think you know what happens next. Revolution. A Polish uprising began in Silesia against the Germans, which was quickly put down. But after the Treaty of Versailles went into effect in 1920, there would be 2 more Polish revolutions in Silesia, in 1920 and 21 respectively. Finally, the Allies were forced to divide Silesia between Germany and Poland, according to a plebiscite. Almost over now. Denmark was given free land from Germany, not because they fought in the war, but because the Allies wanted to punish Germany as hard as possible. There was a communist revolution in the Ruhr, which failed, and then Germany failed to pay its World War I reparations. So France and Belgium went into the Ruhr to start extracting those reparations, but by 1925 diplomatic pressure would force them out. Also, on the 25th of February 1923, the Bottleneck Republic, remember them, would be dissolved back into Germany. I bet you forgot all about them. Okay, where's my Guinness World Record for the fastest, biggest information dump in human history in like 5 minutes or however long this video is going to be? Like, comment, subscribe, goodbye.